Good afternoon, everybody, and it's just gone 12 o'clock on Wednesday, so it's Wednesday webinar time, and thanks for joining us today. Today we've been joined by Tony from Devon and Cornwall Police, and who also works with the Dorset Police, and he's going to explain to us how he's been helping to enable colleagues across the forces to share ideas, but also how to show the progress of them as we move forward. So Tony will be with us in a couple of moments to take us through this, and I'll try and explain a little bit about the Employee Ideas platform before we get started, so you've got some idea of the context of it. So Employee Ideas is built in to the 365 suites that we've all got across policing. It's a Teams application, so it's built into the security environment. It's part of what the standard licenses is. There's no additional costs for using the Teams Employee Ideas application, and just think of it as a bolt-on, an additional functionality that's within the Teams platform. It's important to remember, though, I think that this is part of Teams, so it's not that you've got to get people across to a separate place. It's on the platform they're already using to engage and interact with us all on, and in that safe, secure, audited platform that we all value. We know a number of forces have got separate idea platforms already that they potentially pay for or have built over time, and what we actually do is have a listen to what we go through today and see how this could enhance what you've got already, perhaps save some money in the long run as well, because there is no licensing costs for using this as we move forward. So potential cashable saving, always good. So if you can get a potential cashable saving out of the ideas that employees generate, and then we save money on how we generate those ideas, we could actually have something quite good here. So Tony's going to share his screen. As normal, it's an interactive session. That Mike's on the line as well. We'll be looking at your questions as they come in, so please pop your questions in. Tony's going to take the questions and take you through from start to finish how they use it, make it work for Devon, Cornwall and Dorset forces. And at the end, I'll show you how simple it is to install, because it actually takes about 3 or 4 minutes to install. I won't take you through that whole process, but I can show you how simple it is to take it through. So Tony, could you first of all, by introducing yourself and what your role is in across the two forces?
My name's Inspector Tony Jocelyn. I'm the Innovation Team Inspector for Devon and Cornwall Police. We work in an alliance, as I'm sure many of you are aware, with Dorset. The product that we're about to show you was developed in conjunction with Dorset as part of the alliance work that we've done. We currently run separate products for a myriad of different reasons. There may be an opportunity to bring those back together at some point in the future, but right now they're separate, which tells you that we're effectively able to use them as templates. So they look the same, they have entirely different content, but they function in exactly the same way. And really a very simple concept that we'll get to and we'll show you as we walk through here.
And Tony, just before you start, so you've got a really interesting role in the remit, haven't you, around the National Enabling Programme? Can you just explain what that is?
Part of the job that I was handed, is this a poison chalice? Potentially so, Dave, I think, is to popularise and improve the uptake of 365 and maximise the return on the licenses that we paid for throughout the force. So there's a lot of other stuff that we do in addition to the innovation hub, as we've called it. We're also trying to popularise the use and uptake of 365 by training staff specifically in the use of Microsoft 365 products, and then asking them to go out into the workplace and pass that knowledge and information onto their colleagues, which we've had some real success with. I mean, it's cost to value return, £5,500 for 20 people, and we're already starting to transform parts of the business through uptake of 365 products and transforming business by using those products in place of other analogs. So yeah, really interesting stuff.
Right, I've shared your screen onto the presentation, so Tony, take us through what's going on.
Okay, really simply, all of you I think will be operating on some sort of a SharePoint backbone. We start with a simple button on the front of our main SharePoint home screen, the intranet home screen, which the staff could use to access the hub. When you click on that, it will take you actually to a team site, which I'm not going to do at this stage because I'll explain why in a moment. It actually brings up this within a team site. And the reason that I'm not going to bring up the team site right now is because what you're actually looking at is a SharePoint online communication site, which is effectively reflected back into a team site. So it's nothing, you need to do nothing more in order to set this up. rather than either get your ICT if that's what you need to do, or do it yourselves if you've got the capability to set up a SharePoint communication site, and you can then reflect that back into Teams as part of the setup process. Dorset looks very similar to this in the sense, as I've said to you, it's a template. So this is one of the out-of-the-box templates that you can have pretty much when you set up a communication site, and then we've populated it with our own tiles, our own call to action tiles, as you can see on the right here, are specific areas that allow you to punch out to different aspects of some of Microsoft's component parts. So there's a bulletin component contained within the out of the box product, which you can directly lead to. That feedback section leads to a form which sends an email to my inbox. The social space bit here actually leads to a Yammer site. So we're making best use of some of those Microsoft products right from the off when we put this site together to maximize, again, the return on the licenses that we've got. Each of these tiles is interactive. I shan't bore you with the detail that's behind them. So this is an introductory one. This one sets up the force mission, the why are we doing this one. The how does it work gives some simple guidance on how you go about accessing some of the functionality. The innovation inspiration tile is a fairly hefty resource that points people at other innovation websites that they can look at to give them inspiration about things they might want to suggest to the force, called innovation harvesting. And the so what piece actually points people back to examples of modern and past innovators to again give people inspiration. Separate tabs down here, again, all entirely configurable. We've done it our own way. Dorset has done it theirs. The information that's contained within these is for you to populate based on what your strategic objectives are as an organization and what you think would best engage with your workforce. That's the primary reason for having it in this sort of format, because it's nice and glossy. It looks like a professional website, and you're much more likely to get people clicking on this and spending time with it than you would do on an old SharePoint site rather than the SharePoint Online communication sites. So this top section here, it's where the cliched magic happens. If you click here to submit or view ideas, it will take us through to
we're just having a few technical problems there.
We are having a technical problem because I'm currently sat on the tenant for PDS. I'd have to exit the call to come through and show you what actually happens as a consequence of clicking on that button. But no matter, I can talk you through it, and David can show you the relevant pieces a bit later. So let's go back to here. So as David was saying, the employee ideas module is a completely straight out of the box solution that Microsoft have provided. It enables us to design campaigns, what they call campaigns, which are individual topics that you want people to address and to be able to look at when they're considering what sort of ideas that they want to submit. So for us, we've got things in there on sustainability. We've got things that relate to buildings and estates, new technology, new process change, and a massive box that just says other. There's 8 or 9 total campaigns in there for people to look at. Really simple for us to configure. So what it looks like out of the box is it's got 4 individual component parts, 4 individual campaigns, which you can delete. It then allows you to repopulate those however you wish. And for those of you that have used SharePoint Online before or the communication sites before, the process is pretty much the same. All the images that you can see here, thank you, David. All the images you can see here are high res. They're all searchable using either the Bing search engine, and it'll take you to, at your request, Creative Commons licensed areas that are all free to use, or stock images. Or you can obviously take your own high res images and populate them. But if you look at, just scroll down for us for a second, David. These sections here are the campaigns, and as I say, these are entirely configurable. If you click on one, which is, thank you, very, very helpful, it takes you to the next stage. If you can scroll up, please, David, that'd be very helpful. If you look on the right, just go a bit more on the right there, it says submit an idea. At each stage of this, you really can populate it with the information that you want. There's the add an image section, as David's showing you now. It's a simple matter of inputting the text and the description as to what it is that you're asking people about. The bit that sits below the description section, what impact will your idea have? That's as it comes out of the box. That's again configurable, and you can tailor that as you wish in terms of scalars and what sort of information you want to have. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want. My advice to you would be to keep it very, very simple, primarily because each time that you introduce a new piece of technology, there's a natural resistance for people to get interested in using it. And if they perceive it as being difficult to use or imposing a barrier upon them in terms of accessing the bit that they want, which is submitting an idea, you're much less likely to get people engaged with that as a process. I set up all of the campaigns that we've got on there in less than an hour from start to finish, and it was ready to run pretty much out of the box again. The submit an idea piece for us, as the administrator for the site, it does two things. One is that it populates the application itself to say that the idea has been submitted, and that allows you then to be able to look at the text that's in there, to copy the text should you wish to do so. It also does what David's about to show you now, which is it populates the right section of the top of the screen, the weekly top ideas, where people are able to vote, having viewed all of the ideas that are available from the different campaigns, as to which ones that they wish to have implemented. We don't use that practically in Devon and Cornwall. It's an interesting feature because it shows the staff engagement with particular types of ideas, but I have a separate process that sits outside of that, where I gather people in from other parts of the force, external to the innovation team, where we discuss the ideas that have been submitted to try to get a broad spread of view and opinion from different areas of expertise. And the ideas that are selected then go through another triage process with the innovation board, where they're selected or not for implementation. I hope you've been given some idea of just how simple it is to use this. Don't forget, you can use Power Automate to direct other functionality off the back of this. So what we've got it doing is actually taking the information that's input into the ideas boxes. It then populates the main posts page. So if you look at the top of the screen that David is sharing, you've got general and posts. The post page appears on every single team site and SharePoint Online site. It simply populates back into there.
So what people are seeing at the moment is my effectively demo channel that I've got on the NEP to allow me to sandbox and try things out. So I'm not going to impact on anything, but you can see there's only me posting in here because it literally is my demo place. But you could actually add your ideas platform to your main channel if you wanted to, quite easily, and allow people to interact on there. And obviously there's two tabs there. Most of the staff will only have the ideas tab, but the management team who are managing the ideas have the manage ideas tab there, and you can see how easy it is to add campaigns, or perhaps think of them as buckets of ideas around a theme. There's a way of perhaps thinking about your campaign, and this is where you can specify how long you want the campaign open for, the cover, the titles. I'll just make the screen a little bit wider there, and again you can add all the different ideas and questions you want to add into the section there, so it gives you lots of control of how you want to gather whatever you want to gather in the ideas gathering part of this. That makes sense?
I don't think you need any technological expertise to make this work at all, and I don't even think, because you can start this simply from within a team site if you wish to. Having done as we've done, you set up the team sites, you click the plus button that you should all be familiar with now at the top of the screen, enter the employee ideas as a phrase, and it will bring it up for you. David will show you at the end of this how to install it. It really is a simple process for nothing. We'll come back to that again. You need to do nothing other than simply create a team site or a SharePoint Online site if you want to administer it that way, activate the employee ideas module, and configuration is then down to you. It's a phenomenally simple and straightforward process. And again, in terms of developing the team site itself and that SharePoint Online communication site, I was given about 20 minutes worth of a tutorial by the person who'd originally developed it, and was then able to do it all myself. So it's as simple as being able to click on a few buttons, identify where the plus signs are, where the delete buckets are, and you can have this up and running, aside from your content, in much less than a day. And again, I'll say it once more because it really does bear saying, for absolutely nothing.
That's fantastic. No, so this is the first part of your ideas platform in many ways. And unfortunately we can't do a screen share right now, and we will try and fix that. But you then, as you mentioned, you've got to adding into a list so
Yep.
you can then track them. And
Which
obviously we've done a webinar on lists a couple of times now, haven't we?
But I can show you how that works because
Yep.
I've got that previously set up. So I'll try sharing my screen again, Dave. We'll go from
No
there.
problem. There we go. Here's your screen.
All right. So as you've seen, the posts section of the site that you'll be using is populated with ideas that come from the employee ideas module. That's what I use generally to keep track of where things are, because otherwise they're numbers that pop up in each of the campaigns, and it can be difficult to keep in your head how many of a particular type you've got. So the new notifications come up into there. I then I've set up a list, very simple list system, which you can see in front of you, which we've currently got 42 ideas in play since the 13th of September. So a month's worth of ideas have generated a fair bit of work. For us, then, it's really simple and straightforward. I use this to administer the meeting that we have to triage the ideas. It's very simply set up. So if we click on any one of these boxes, it will give us the editing view. And then it enables you simply to do the tracking that you would want to be able to do as to who's got what, to whom it's been allocated, at what state it's at in terms of its progress. This one's been paused, hasn't yet gone to the board, so further work is required prior to a decision being made. How you wish to set something like this up is entirely up to you. You could use Power Automate if you wish to do so off the back of the employee idea module to populate the description of what the person's idea is, who they are, and any other details that you feel are relevant off that. I've not yet gone that far because I've simply been trying to keep on top of the stuff that's coming into the hub. But as a tool for being able to see really in one place exactly where it is, where we are in terms of those ideas, it's really helpful. And don't forget, for everybody that's got access to the main team site and has been given authorization to alter parts of that site, they can work on this with you in real time, because it's the single authoritative document that it acts as a resource for where your ideas are and for how far along they are. And so this has been used by other members of the extended innovation team to put their updates on for the work that they've been tasked out to do. So for me, it's a really helpful and useful way of managing that throughput of work without, again, having to expend a massive amount of time and effort to be able to get this to work properly. It has been as simple as spending 5 minutes deciding on the project headings or the headings for each of the sections and then populating them as we go. I think if you wanted to follow our solution, we could package it up for you and send it to you via the NEP. Honestly, it's probably easier for you to do all this yourselves.
Yeah, and there's a question from Laura, which is about how do you get the information from teams into the list? And as you say, you don't using Automate, but I've certainly set up Automates to do that in a matter of minutes to populate lists. It works really well.
It is. I think the point about all this for me is that David and I sat down last week. We had a conversation about this prior to this presentation. And David, you've been involved in this world with the NEP now for quite a while, and you were quite surprised at how much functionality there is and how it's there out of the box available for you to use, and how with just a simple few tweaks and tricks, you can actually have something that looks professionally produced, that your staff will engage with because of the nature of its presentation, and enables you then to do the work that you need to do. I did a very similar presentation where there weren't some technological issues to the College of Policing a few weeks ago, and other forces want to do this in different ways. So they potentially want to have the ideas being rooted out rather than being dealt with centrally. That's a matter of choice for you. For us, this works perfectly because it gives us governance over the ideas. It gives us the ability to engage directly with every single person that's presented an idea to us. Everybody gets feedback, which has been very well received, which in turn stimulates engagement from the staff and gives us a greater opportunity to maximize the resources that we've got through the creativity of our people. So for us, this is a perfect fit. Whilst I've talked about governance, the governance is really light touch. We're trying to be agile with it, to be responsive. The fact that I can go in and edit the team site and the Sharepoint online page whenever I wish, without having to get ICT involved to do that, means that we're really receptive to changes in what's happening with the public and what's happening internally within the organization, what the latest ideas are. So I can and will rewrite the site periodically to keep people's interest up going. As Microsoft updates the module itself, which undoubtedly they will do as part of their iterative modifications, we'll get an improved product, again, for nothing.
And again, what I would say is that, you know, the fact that when you get the data into a list, because one of the big problems with an employee idea approach is how do you give feedback to people who've submitted their ideas so they can track what's going on, because that's how you maintain that confidence in submitting ideas. So the beauty of list is that you can create a different view of that list data and make a view available on SharePoint for people to see and not edit, whilst you guys can manage the process in the back end. So a really powerful part of the solution that can be built in. It takes the data from the ideas module and then takes that forward, doesn't it, Tony?
It does, and I think I know, having had these conversations with other forces, there's a sense that this is the sort of product that ICT, your IT department, should have produced for you a few years ago. There's a lot of democratization. We'll talk about democratization of the technology. For me, this is a perfectly good example. You don't need to be specialist. You don't need to have an in-depth knowledge of the working of the platform. You just need to have sufficient interest and enthusiasm to be able to dig into it and make this work.
Yeah. And this is another question just coming from Cleveland Police. Not all officers yet have migrated to 365 yet, but it really only need the Teams migration to do the ideas platform and the SharePoint site. Again, as long as staff are able to access a SharePoint site, they usually can do even with the most basic rollout, they can access it. But the question is, they currently commission Idea Drop for their employee idea sharing platform, which obviously has a cost to it. But this could be good for the future to save some money. So did you look at other platforms?
We didn't, because this was developed before I came onto the team, so the decision was made in advance of me being here. The only thing that we found, because we're in the same position as a lot of other forces in terms of doing an incremental rollout of some of the component parts, is that on the day that we launched, I hadn't realised, because I had specific access, we hadn't rolled out the Power Automate license to all the staff. Well, it's a Power Automate part of the platform, so you've got to make a decision as an organisation whether you want to have all your staff have access to the potential to start to make their own automations. Yeah. And we had a very brief conversation about that and decided that it was substantively worth the risk in terms of people breaking out of the sandbox and doing stuff on their own. And in fact, it forms part of the greater plan of how we maximise that license return by getting people to be creative in work's time and use the tools that we've got available to us.
That's right. And there's another question come in there, which I'm happy to answer, but I'd love your view on this, Tony, is can you target campaigns to specific groups or departments? And obviously you can attach the ideas module to different teams, so you can have a campaign around that. But at a force level, again, you could have it open up and share those links to those campaigns into specific teams. Is that something you've looked at in DC&D?
So what we've talked about right at the outset of the preparation for the launch that we did is directed innovation, and every quarter at least getting the executive to provide us with some indication of where they would like the organisation to be thinking about, so they could build some of their strategic planning based off the innovations the organisation could present. So yeah, we have definitely thought about it in terms of how that would present back out to the wider organisation. And I think, you know, you and I talked in the past about the real importance of communications and how the clarity and persistence of communications makes a difference to how these campaigns work. It isn't sufficient to post once and forget. The comms plan is quite extensive, and it really, unfortunately, batters the organisation regularly and frequently with requests for engagement and information. We haven't yet done the first directed innovation campaign because it's not yet the right point in the cycle. We've not got to that point yet where we're ready to do that, but there will be at least one this year, and we'll make full use of the technology when we come to do that.
Thanks, Tony. Now, really sorry that we've not been able to share the screen from Tony showing how the SharePoint side of it works and the team's approach. I will quickly just remind you that there is help from all your delivery teams and the engagement teams from the NEP who will happily take you into some detail around this. And again, if I just show you on the screen, again, if I just click the button there. So to install this application into your team's environment, it says literally click the button there, add to a team, And you can see here it's then asking you which Teams channels you want to add it into at any given point. So if I've already dropped it into my sandbox space, if I drop it into another team here, which is only a limited group in the comms team at the moment, you can see there it's gone away. It's going to start processing it. And it will actually post when it's available to that channel as well. So I'll just turn that off because I don't want to confuse people and understanding what's going on here. But you can see it's not a complicated process. It may be that this additional apps function is switched off in your force by IT, but you can then obviously request and build that business case to make that happen. But that's as hard as it is to install, because it's already approved and in the blueprint, so there's nothing complicated to make that work for you. So once you've got that in place, if I just drop back out of there, hopefully into the IDE, you can see it creates a couple of tabs at the top of the team. So I'll go back into my demo tenant there, apologies. So you can see a couple of new tabs. You can change the order of the tabs. Ideas is the key one that's there and allows people to vote on the campaigns, give them thumbs up, suggest them. And you can see these are the sort of things I've just been playing with whilst I've been getting to understand this, ready to deploy across the BDS with the staff forum we're going to be using to help do this. And we can talk about those things. The images are there. You can see how simple it is going to be to gather those in as we get this implemented. So thanks, Tony, for today. And again, apologies, we did have that technical issue, and hopefully we'll pick up any questions you've got. Please get in touch with us. NEPinfo@transformation.police.uk if you need any more help. We have got a webinar planned on sharing the wider use of SharePoint coming up as well. We're just waiting to confirm the date on that. But next week, we're going to be joined by our colleagues from Cumbria, who are going to be talking about their experience around managing guest access. Now, this is a really important issue for forces because we all recognise that policing rarely is the sole agency dealing with any big community issue or even incident. And we often need to bring in our colleagues from partner agencies as guests so they can work with them in the 365 environment. And in fact, any of you who've got access to the Enabling Centre and the Solutions Catalogue or the Force collaborations from the NEP are guests in the NEP/PDS tenant. So you are all using that anyway. So Cumbria are going to come along next week and share their experience of how they manage the guest process. We've got thousands of guests in our tenant, and it can become an overhead unless we manage it really effectively. So we can show you that. And I personally have guest access into the Microsoft tenant. Doesn't mean I see all the secrets, but it does mean that I can get in there and chat to colleagues in Microsoft when I want to get a hold of them quickly. So a really important part, particularly around the MARC and the safeguarding work that we've picked up. So do come along. The link will be in the chat. It's on the NEP website, so we hope that you're able to join us next week. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for keeping going through the technical issues. We got there in the end. So we hope you join us next week when we've got another good webinar around guest access. So thanks very much.